my name is Ryan Cam, and welcome back to Scott Month, where I'm covering a select few Ridley Scott directed films that I've never seen in honor of the Dog Stars coming out later this month. I have already covered Black Hawk Down, Link in the Eye in the right-hand corner, but for now, let's carry on with yet another film that Ridley Scott had to make a director's cut of, but only one this time. It's Kingdom of Heaven.
For the strength to endure what is to come.
Kingdom of Heaven was released in 2005 and it starred Orlando Bloom, Edward Norton, Liam Neeson, Jeremy Irons, Eva Green, and more. It tells the story of a blacksmith named Balian, played by Orlando Bloom, whose wife has recently committed suicide after a miscarriage. Balian is just content to live out the rest of his days being a blacksmith and not bothering anyone. However, his father, played by Liam Neeson, forces him into a pretty small little conflict called the Crusades, specifically the battle for Jerusalem between Christians and Muslims, and it's up to Balian to protect himself and the kingdom that he has been forced to take over from his father. So, like I said, this movie had a director's cut made from it. And to make the long story short, there was a theatrical cut of this film that was about 2.5 hours that was given lukewarm reviews. It was financially successful, but the critics didn't really care for it, with the Rotten Tomato score being around 30-ish percent, like in the 30 range. It was not good, and it was not received that well. So much so that Ridley Scott just said, let's do it again, and so supervised himself a re-release of the film, the director's cut, and re-released the film in December of 2005 to much great critical acclaim, to the point where Scott would later say in an interview with Empire magazine, this is the version that should have been released. I'd hesitate to say this is my overall favorite Scott, but this is a lot of things that I love about Ridley Scott, and I'll get into in a second. First up, I loved the cinematography here. Ridley Scott, even the worst of his movies, still look fantastic, and that goes double for this movie. He filmed on location in Morocco, and it really shows because there's a lot of practical sets, a lot of great stunt battles. I'll talk more about the battles in a second. There is some CGI used, but it's used only for like wide shots and only stuff that they absolutely had to use for. There's a lot of great just montages and just really stellar looking imagery. This is definitely Ridley Scott in like the prime of his career. The score is also fantastic. My favorite score in any Ridley Scott movie is still Gladiator. I think this might be a close second because it's operatic, it's just so beautiful, and it conveys the mood just in about as fantastic a way as you could ever ask for. It sets the mood perfectly. Orlando Bloom is great. I swear, I feel like in the 2000s, after Lord of the Rings, Orlando Bloom was just typecast into the guy that stars in fantasy films between Lord of the Rings and this. But he was great. And really, he's the beating heart of the movie because he starts out having lost his family. His wife commits suicide because of a miscarriage, and he's very, very sad. And he's just content to try and live his life without bothering anyone. That's all that he wants. And so when he's thrust into this conflict, he doesn't ask for it. He just is pretty much forced to. And even though he is forced to, he takes to it about as good as you can ask for because he just says, okay, this is my new normal now. I gotta make it work. And he does. There are a lot of great scenes where it, like in battle and in private, like he just shows his mettle. A smaller scene that may not be talked about a lot that I personally loved is when he gets to his new kingdom, Ibelion. He basically helps his not his townspeople, but his subjects, for lack of a better word, create an irrigation system, which is so desperately needed because they're literally living in a desert. It's a really great scene. Jason is great in his limited involvement. You got who I'm going to call Yorgi from Triple X. I know he has a name, I'll put it somewhere here, but he's the bad guy in a lot of movies. But I just know him as Yorgi from Triple X. But he's great too. Like you got Brendan Gleeson, you got Jeremy Irons, you got Eva Green, who just Eva Green. Yes, yes, please. And you also have Edward Norton, who is my second favorite performance other than Orlando Bloom. I had actually seen a few clips of this movie before seeing this whole thing, and a lot of it had to do with Edward Norton because he has this like you don't see his face like because he's a leper, so he's fully clothed like in white, like he's got a bandage on his hand because leprosy. He's got this silver mask on, but you can hear everything that he says. And he has this great little monologue where he's talking to Balian and he's like a man owns his own soul, and I can't do the scene justice. So I'll put a clip of it right here.
Remember that howsoever you are played, or by whom, your soul is in your keeping alone.
But it's a phenomenal monologue, and really, Edward Norton, I don't think he's even credited for this, but he does great. My one big problem, and it doesn't really affect my enjoyment too much, is that the movie is a bit long. Like, I understand that it's the director's cut, and Scott felt the need to add the 45 minutes back into the movie that he cut out on the advisement of tested audiences and 20th Century Fox. But at the same time, it did start to get a little long, especially near the middle. There's not really a dull moment per se. I guess I was just really feeling the length, if that makes any sense. But it ultimately doesn't matter. In the grand scheme of things, I'm giving this an amazing grade. Again, it's a bit long, but the rest of the movie's so chock full of quality that I just don't care about the length. It's got great battle scenes, great acting, beautiful scores and cinematography. I hesitate to say this is Ridley Scott's best film overall because I feel like you could do maybe a top five and this one not even be anywhere close to the top. But this just has so much going for it that it's just a phenomenal piece of work. But what did you all think of Kingdom of Heaven? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to read what you have to say. And next up, I'll be covering, well, an epic of a different kind, a gangster epic called American Gangster. My name is Ryan Cam, and I'll see you in the next one.